Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome into UFL Tonight. I am your host, James Baker. Now, if you can't believe it, I can't either. But after this week, we'll be over halfway through the UFL season. Now, if you noticed right in front of me, we have our official first co-host of the show. Shout out to Billy the Bandit. It is going to be his birthday on Sunday against the Louisville Kings. They're giving out 5,000 hats in his honor. You can get tickets at theufl.com/tickets. Now, week 4 was absolute madness, but a lot of the fireworks happened after the games. And we'll get to all of that, but first, we have to recap our final 3 games of week 4 in our rapid recap. We start things off in Columbus, Ohio with the Columbus Aviators taking on the Dallas Renegades. Now, if you are used to a classic ground and pound football game, this was the game for you. Columbus knew that Dallas had played 3 games in 11 days, and their game plan was simply just run it down their throats. They didn't care that the Renegades were 3-0 and they hadn't won a game entering this one. They just said, screw it, we'll hand the ball off and just run it straight down the middle. They had 3 running backs with over 10 carries, including To'otawa, who got in for a score, and Zaquandre White, as they put up 47 rushing attempts, the most in UFL history. This included an incredible 18-play, 97-yard, 10-minute drive to score a touchdown, and the Aviators went on to win 28-14 as Ted Ginn Jr. celebrates and gets his first ever professional coaching win right there in Columbus, Ohio, right where it all started. At one point in this game, it was 30 minutes of real time before the Renegades offense even saw the field. I personally was at the Renegades watch party, and for that half hour, it was boring as hell. Talk about a game that's never boring in the UFL. It is always going to be the St. Louis Battlehawks versus the DC Defenders. This one was in DC, and man, the environment was electric. We finally got to see the Jordan Teamu that we're used to seeing. He threw a couple of good touchdowns in the first half, one to Kiki Kuti and another one to Ty Scott. And man, Harrison Frost to Hakeem Butler, it was just a little dink and dunk pass. But man, 75-yard one-play drive. That is Hakeem the Dream for you. He punches it in as we go into half with the Battlehawks down 17-12. And coming out of half, it was clear that DC was the home team here as they scored 3 times, 2 field goals, and a safety to score 8 unanswered points as they were up 25-12 with just a few minutes into the fourth quarter. St. Louis definitely did not give up though, as they marched all the way down the field for Kayvon Latulis to punch in a touchdown. Then a couple of field goals we traded back and forth, and sadly, they couldn't get it done at the end, with Harrison Frost's pass being picked off by Sam Kidd to seal the game for the Defenders 28-22. And then our final game of the week. Wow, this was definitely a highly controversial one. The Orlando Storm versus the Birmingham Stallions. The Stallions having their home opener there in Protective at Birmingham. First off, got to give credit to the Stallions fans. 18,000 strong showed up. It was a wonderful turnout. Former head coach Skip Holtz delivered the game ball. They were honoring the late great head coach Lou Holtz on their helmets. Everything was poised to be an amazing afternoon there in Birmingham. And we haven't even touched on the fact that they were just a couple hours away from a Gucci Mane halftime performance. So everything was just awesome. The vibes were immaculate, but sadly, this would not last for long. The first half was pretty much all Orlando. You know, they scored a touchdown, they got a field goal, Birmingham missed a field goal, Orlando got another field goal. As we went into half with that Gucci Mane concert, with the Stallions down 13-0. Yes, the first half of their home opener, the Stallions scored 0 points. And well, I'd like to say that things got better at half, but they just flat out didn't. In fact, they had to end up benching quarterback Matt Corral for the Birmingham legend Michael Ayers, the Samford kid. He didn't fare too much better, as the end of this game would see the Storm winning 16-0, retaining their perfect status, moving to 4-0, with the Birmingham Stallions being shut out at home. The first regular season shutout in UFL history, and it's AJ McCarron and the Stallions home opener. What a disaster. I know fans were going crazy on Twitter, wanting to bring Skip Holtz back, wanting AJ McCarron out of there. Guys, I get it. Definitely a rough game. Got to give AJ a little bit of grace. I know it was not good in the slightest, but hey, come on. He's only been coaching for a month, all right? I think give him a little bit of patience. If we're just firing everybody in a couple weeks, like, Come on, what's the point of all this? This is supposed to be a league of opportunity to grow, to get better, and to improve yourself. And talk about teams wanting to get better. That's exactly what a couple of them did on Sunday right after these games finished. First team to strike were the Louisville Kings. They traded away their quarterback, Jason Bean, the former Kansas Jayhawk, to the DC Defenders for their backup, Mike DeLillo. Now, it's a little bit interesting. You know, Jason Bean just won them their first game in franchise history, but a lot of fans were very upset when he slid right on the goal line with less than a yard to go to get the touchdown. And I understand it. They bring in Mike DeLillo, who has sat behind Jordan Teamu for a couple of years. He knows what it's like to be on a championship team. He's been there, done that. You know, he hasn't gotten too much playing time, but in the limited playing time he's gotten, he's looked solid. So I think that him combined with Chandler Rogers can bring some stability to that quarterback room and bring some veteran leadership presence that I know Coach Redmond desperately needs with him being a first-year head coach. And then the second team to strike were the Birmingham Stallions. Now, after they got blanked in their home opener, AJ McCarron said everything was on the table, including a quarterback change, and that's exactly what he did. He traded away Matt Corral and defensive end Armani Bledsoe to the Orlando Storm, the team that they just got beat by, for Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Of course, the former Cleveland Brown, former UCLA Bruin, and now DTR is set to start just here in an hour or so for the Birmingham Stallions against the DC Defenders. And on Monday, we saw an even crazier trade. My team, the Dallas Renegades, reached out to the St. Louis Battlehawks and decided to send quarterback Luis Perez, the King of Spring, to the Dome there in St. Louis in exchange for offensive tackle Corey Stewart. Now, Stewart's going to be a solid depth piece for us, but I was left just completely bewildered. Like, why would we trade away the King of Spring and get practically, I don't want to say nothing because we got a solid offensive lineman in return, but come on, like his name is literally the King of Spring. Now, Coach Rick Neuheisel released a quote saying that it was actually Perez which came up to him and prompted this trade. So Perez was looking for an opportunity to start to play some more. We saw this happen in 2023 when he got traded from the Vegas Vipers to the Renegades. And a lot of people don't remember that the player he got traded for never ended up actually playing a single down for the other team. So spring football trades have always been wild and wacky. But yes, to recap, we have Jason Bean in DC, we have DTR in Birmingham, and now Luis Perez in St. Louis. Another crazy transaction was defensive tackle Perion Winfrey. Now, it seems like there was a little bit of commotion between him and the Birmingham staff. He went to Twitter to express some of his frustrations in a now deleted tweet, and just a couple days later, after being released by the Stallions, he has been signed by the Columbus Aviators. So the former all-UFL defensive tackle, he was on the Cowboys 53-man roster for a bit, finds himself in Columbus shoring up that D-line. I'm sure Ted Ginn is happy as hell and said, hey AJ, if you want to cut anymore, send him my way. Some other big news of the week that just dropped this morning, it is now official. The UFL Championship 2026 will take place on June 13th right there at Audi Field in DC. Super excited for this game. I'm going to try to make it out. I'll do the best I can. I'm glad it's no longer going to be in St. Louis. Not saying anything bad about St. Louis, just we've been there, done that. I think DC has been an amazing atmosphere for the UFL. It was kind of the blueprint for the smaller soccer stadiums, so I think it's only right that they finally get a chance to host a championship. And who knows, we may see this DC team there. I know Matty Fresh, we'll talk to him later. He's expecting to see DC there. I bet you he already has his tickets booked, and man, they've been looking nice. We'll see if they can keep up that momentum tonight against Birmingham. And we introduced this segment last week and we're keeping it going. It's where we find the worst takes, everything that aged like milk or just made you say, thank God I didn't say that. It is this week's Clipped.
Sit down, be humble. Sit down, be humble. Sit down, be humble.
And this week we have our first ever UFL head coach on Clipped. I just absolutely love this. This is part of the transparent communications you get as a fan watching these games. And I just want you to picture yourself, okay? You're a Birmingham player on that bench. You're getting absolutely shut out at home. Okay, you need some motivation from your head coach. He comes over to talk you up, and this is what you hear.
So, I need you to play better. All right?
Whoa, it's that easy? I never even thought about it like that. You know, you're right, coach. I could just play better. That would probably help a lot of things. What are we doing here, guys? Like, genuinely what? And man, Stallions fans, I know it was a rough weekend for you, but I just couldn't help including this one in. I know we just talked about AJ McCarron, but I had to include this one too. We have Iowa Stallion there on Twitter, which at 5:10 p.m. said, yeah, give us Michael Ayers. The Matt Corral experiment just doesn't work. And this is really a beautiful story in two parts, as less than an hour later at 5:53 p.m., Iowa Stallion, holy hell, Michael Ayers is some dog shit. Hey, not my words. Those are his. Michael Ayers, still your backup quarterback. The Corral experiment, you are correct, is over. Now you have DTR. Hopefully he plays a little bit better than the other two guys last week. And finally, on Clipped, I have to put myself. Now, we talked just a little bit ago. Yes, Luis Perez, the King of Spring, as you see, I have his book right behind me, has been traded to St. Louis. So now I look like an absolute dumbass because in January, I woke up early in the morning to beat rush hour traffic to stand in front of UFL HQ on draft day and say, hey, let's keep Luis Perez a Renegade. And what was it for? We didn't even see him take a single snap for the Renegades this year. In fact, hold on one second. I may still have the sign. I'll be right back. Yeah, so like, what do I even do with this now? I think it's just going in the recycling bin. But hey, keep Luis Perez Battlehawk, okay? Law is law, I guess. Man, Luis, I miss you, but hey, I'm glad to see you play. The league is always better when the King of Spring is out there slinging it, so I'm looking forward to your first game as a Battlehawk. And that's all for this week's edition of Clipped. Make sure to follow us at UFL Tonight and send in what you think should be featured on the show. And we'll do our best, man. There are a lot of potential entries, a lot of stuff ages bad as we're live tweeting these games, my stuff included, as you can tell. And we'll be back in a short bit to go over our hot topic, our survey says, and our community content. But first, we have a quick message live from Toyota Stadium.
What's up, everybody? I'm here at Toyota Stadium, home of FC Dallas and the Dallas Renegades. I'm watching the FC Dallas match right now, but if you want to watch your Renegades, you have one more shot this season. Sunday against the Louisville Kings. Get your tickets now. It is going to be Billy's birthday. We're handing out 5,000 free hats to the first 5,000 fans. Get your tickets at theufl.com/tickets.
Who said I can't wear my Converse with my dress? Well, baby, that's just me.
Welcome back to Hot Topic on UFL Tonight, where you give us your hot takes and we react. And man, the number one topic on everyone's mind this week was about veterans in the UFL, whether people are actually getting blackballed, what's going on with all these vets that played in previous leagues like the USFL, like the XFL, pretty much just what is going on. And hey, I've been seeing this all over social media. I definitely understand it. I see it. There's been a lot of players that are saying, hey, coaches are even trying to sign me and the league is just barring it. People don't know what's going on. I've seen a lot of reasons thrown out there. With this whole blacklisting of players, I don't think it's really an official blacklist per se, but some of these older veteran guys have been a little bit more injury prone. And I know the league's medical insurance just hasn't really been approving a lot of these older vets. So there's a couple of guys I know, like Frank Ginda tweeted out, Ricky Person Jr. tweeted out. Frank Ginda ended last year on IR. Ricky Person Jr., when he was with the Seahawks, had to have an injury settlement. I understand the frustrations, especially if teams are trying to sign these guys. Like, I'm not here saying that the league is doing this correctly. By all means possible, I think we need to get the best 22 players down on that field, and that includes a lot of these veterans like Ginda, like Ricky Person Jr. But I'm just trying to explain that they're coming at it from a dollars and cents perspective. It's nothing like, hey, we just don't like you, we're going to blacklist you. There is an actual reason behind it. Whether or not you think the reason is legitimate is fully up to you. I'm not the businessman running it. I don't know the full numbers and what all that entails. That is not at all my job, but I'm just here to tell you that yes, there are some veteran players that are experiencing some difficulties getting back into the league due to issues such as these. And I see that a lot of people are frustrated, and I have some frustrations too. I think that if a coach is actively trying to reach out and sign this player, they're able to pass a physical, they should be allowed to play. Next up, we have the Kings made the right choice in trading away Jason Bean for Mike DeLillo. Now, a lot of people were very upset about this one. I know Jason Bean's mobility adds a unique layer that you really need in spring football, but here's the thing. If he is sliding on a 3rd and goal situation where you desperately need a touchdown, if he is making some boneheaded mistakes that you just can't have a leader taking, then I think this is the very smart play for them to completely switch it up, to get a guy, which I don't even want to discredit Mike DeLillo's athletic ability. I think he is also very sneaky athletic. A lot of people don't realize how great of a player he is and how high of regard he was held there in DC on a championship level roster. So I think bringing in a more veteran guy that can provide more leadership qualities is going to be great. And then also on the flip side for DC, they get somebody with the athletic mobility of Jason Bean to use in almost a Derek King type role that they did a couple of years ago alongside Jordan Ta'amu. And then also Jason Bean gets to sit behind Jordan Ta'amu and learn from him, learn from one of the greatest players to ever play spring football. So I think this trade benefits both sides, and yeah, I can very much see this benefiting Louisville even more. And then finally, the UFL will not fire any of the head coaches after this year. Quite frankly, if I'm being transparent, I do not agree with this. Now, I think mid-year firings in a 10-week season, we're not going to see it. But I really think that if we see a coach just continue on, the entire season goes terrible. Like let's say Birmingham or Columbus ends up 1-9 or 2-8. Rapoli wants quick results. He's going to have those discussions in the offseason, especially, coaches which may be on a hot seat like Ted Ginn getting into some recent legal trouble with his DWI. You can't be getting into legal trouble and then also be performing badly on the field. I think that Rapoli is going to hold these teams in a much higher standard than what we're used to. And we have seen this league not be afraid to fire coaches before. John DeFilippo was beloved by a lot of players and coaches. They still canned him. Mike Nolan, the same thing. He made a UFL championship and they still decided to tell him to go kick rocks. This is a league that is not afraid to make change, especially when change is needed. And if we get to the end of the year and change is desperately needed in 1, 2, maybe even 3 teams, I see Rapoli saying, yeah, do whatever you got to do to get the best football product there on the field. So those were our hot topics. Now let's see what the general community agrees on in our weekly survey says. Make sure to follow along on X at UFL Tonight, as we'll post 3 weekly polls for you to participate in. And starting off, we have Orlando at 4-0. We saw that dominant win over Birmingham, and I had to ask you guys, do you believe we'll see Orlando in the UFL Championship? And it seems like the general public is pretty high on them, with 33% saying yes, they will be in that championship game, and then 50% saying no, but they'll at least make playoffs. So at 4-0, they're definitely not clinched, but 88% predicting Orlando will at least make playoffs. If there's one thing that's certain, the Storm are in great hands with Anthony Becht, and this team is looking good as we head into week 5. And then for poll number 2, it's been a wild week of UFL trades, more trades in a week than I think we've ever seen in league history. So I asked you guys, do you think we're going to see even more trades? And is this just the beginning, or are we pretty much done for the year? And it looks like most of y'all think we're done for the year, with 50% saying we will not see any more trades. But then it's a 50-50 split. 25% and 25% think we just see a couple more trades, or 25% think we're just getting started. If this becomes a weekly thing and we're getting, 3-4 trades every week, man, just put me out of my misery now, because it has been an absolute pain trying to keep up with everything. The UFL does not stop. And for our final poll, we talk about the Storm a lot. We talk about the Defenders. We talk about the Renegades. But what about those 4 teams that are at 1 and 3? The Aviators, the Gamblers, the Kings, and the Stallions. Which one of these teams do you predict to make the playoffs, if any? We had a couple of responses that are just like, I don't expect any of these teams to make the playoffs. And it's completely valid. But I'm saying, out of the 4, which one do you expect to be the most likely to make playoffs? And looks like the Aviators won this out, with 34% picking the Aviators. And then we have a 2-way tie for second, with the Kings and the Stallions taking it at 25%. And then last place at 16%, we have the Houston Gamblers. So that's all for our weekly survey says. Like I said, make sure to follow along on X at UFL Tonight, as we'll post 3 weekly polls for you to participate in, the first poll for next week being posted directly at kickoff. Now, kickoff tonight is going to be in Birmingham, Alabama, going up against the DC Defenders. Now, if we're talking DC Defenders football, there is only one man we could interview for this week's community content. It's the man, the myth, the legend himself, the host of Springball Boulevard, Matty Fresh. Take a look at our conversation.
I think I probably learned a lot about college football and geography of the schools and where they were through video games. But yeah, my dad had Penn State season tickets from the time I was a toddler. So those are the first 2 things that got me into the sport in general. And then, in spring football, Man, it really goes back to that 30 for 30 that came out. This was the XFL back in 2017. And then shortly after that, Vince McMahon decided he was going to revive the XFL. And, just going back and watching old games from '01. And I think at that time I was super into WWE as well and just was pumped. And they had that kind of 2-year lead up to XFL 2020, which was amazing, the build up to that thing. And just completely fell in love with the DC Defenders from day one, and here we are now.
You touched on it a little bit. Your dad has had Penn State season tickets since you were a toddler. You're a big Penn State fan, Penn State icon. You want to speak a little bit about that and kind of your Penn State fandom?
Yeah, it was in my blood since I was born. Sister graduated there. Like I said, dad had season tickets forever. Was fortunate enough to graduate there myself back in 2019. Proud alum of Penn State. And it was just ingrained in my identity from a very young age, and was just always an entertainer. Always had some kind of instrument or, some kind of routine going on when I was growing up. Was always in all the school plays and stuff. And once kind of got into high school and early college, just kind of started experimenting with music a lot more, and got to work with some super talented producers and had some really good people around me. And we got a couple songs from Penn State that popped off there. One in the McSorley song that was really after the fact. We put it out in 2018. It didn't really pop off nationally until 2020, but it was cool to come back and be like, everybody that was at Penn State at that time knew about those songs, but once they grew nationally, it was kind of like putting Penn State on the map a little bit.
2020, COVID's all happening, but your Trace McSorley song.
Throw it on a dime, like I ain't even trying. Just a kid from Briarwoods, I'm wearing number 9.
Out of all things, is just blowing up across the internet. Like, what was kind of going through your head?
Yeah, I was not ready for it. There was a lot of I's to dot and a lot of T's to cross when that happens. You never can really be ready for that moment. But it was a weird time because it was right kind of in the middle of COVID, and there was an NFL season was going on, and there was like some Wednesday night games, and Trace was going to get the start, and kind of I guess the original way that it blew up was just through like Madden highlights. I don't know. I was still trying to figure out TikTok and kind of the emergence of that over COVID, and it's crazy because I'm not saying I'd like given up on the song completely, but at that time, like Trace and I graduated the same year.
Yeah, you came and went.
We moved on, did our own things. Like he went on to the NFL and I went on to the job market. So I'd never imagined that, TikTok could be, that much of an engine to drive like a trend but we've seen it with several songs now, but you can never really be ready for that. So from the minute that it happened, just had to go to work and get everything, in place. And hell, the song wasn't even on Spotify at that point. So we had a lot of work to do, but was lucky enough to get all that done and kind of rode that momentum a little bit.
I'm curious because we have a little bit of a UFL Penn State tie now. Quarterback Rocco Beck, son of head coach Anthony Beck. We possibly going to see a Rocco UFL Penn State song this season?
Well, it's perfect timing to bring this up because I'll actually be in Orlando this weekend. So I got to catch up with Coach Beck. Him and I have had some good interactions over the years, going back to XFL 23 when they were trying to figure out the tiebreakers. And we had a video out for the playoffs, and he hit me up and was like asking me questions and followed me on Twitter. And we kind of had a good relationship since then. So I got to get in his ear and chop it up with him about Rocco, because that would be the kind of perfect marriage there, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. You guys being champions last year, right now, almost halfway through the year, do you see yourselves back in that championship game? Who else do you see there with you? Like, what's kind of your top 3 teams, I'd say, right now going into week 5?
Oh, no question. Yeah, DC will be back in the championship game. Hope for that one to be at home in Audi Field. I know we're still waiting on this announcement. Like, keep kicking the can down the road. It's got to be in DC, right? Let's just pray it is.
I've heard from several unconfirmed sources all individually that it's going to be DC. So it's just a matter of time, I think.
Right now, I would think we might get a rematch of that 2023 XFL championship game, and if we do, oh boy, it's revenge time.
That's getting a little bit too far ahead of ourselves. Let's bring it back. This always airs as a pregame to the Friday game. You already said that DC is going to handle business, but I put a score prediction on all my guests. If you had to put a final score on it, what's DC winning by?
Man, I think Birmingham's pass defense has been terrible. Like, that's really been their weakness. I guess, I could see DC scoring 30 here. I mean, they've had some big offensive performances. Yeah, let's say it spreads 5.5. I think DC wins this game by 2 scores. We'll say they win it by 15.
So shout out to Matty Fresh for joining the show. Make sure you check out all of his channels as well. And one big thing he likes to do every week is post his best bets of the week. But in case you don't realize, we also post our best bets of the week here on Baker's Best Bets. Looking at this weekend's slate of games, we start off with the Birmingham game, with DC being a 6.5-point favorite with that total set at 44.5. And then we have the Battlehawks taking on the Storm. They're in Orlando, with them being a 3-point favorite with the total set at 44.5. Then we have the same total for Columbus at Houston, with Columbus being a 3.5-point favorite. And we end off the week Sunday afternoon with Louisville taking on Dallas right there at Toyota Stadium, with the Renegades being a 7.5-point favorite, with the highest total of the week at 47.5. My first pick this week is going to be that DC Birmingham game here in about half an hour, with the over 44.5. I know Birmingham got blanked last week, but look, they went out, they made a change, they got a brand new quarterback. They're going to want to get some points on the board quick, especially because they haven't scored yet at home. And if there's one thing the DC defenders know how to do, it's also put up points. And Birmingham's defense has not looked that great. So I think, hey, if Birmingham doesn't put up any points, we could also see DC just put up 44 on their own. I think this over is going to hit easily. And then my next pick is going to be in that Anthony Beck St. Louis reunion, with St. Louis going down to Orlando to take on the Orlando Storm. I know the Storm are 4-0, but hey, all giants have to fall at some point. We saw the Renegades fall last week. I don't think we see an undefeated streak continue on much longer in the UFL, as I think the Battlehawks are going to cover the spread of +3 easily, potentially even get the win. I know Harrison Frost is going to be the starter, but you never know if the King of Spring might make an appearance, and if he does, I fear that the Storm are going to be cooked. And then my final pick of the weekend is going to be Columbus versus Houston. I feel like Columbus is a little bit overrated coming off that win against the Renegades, where literally all they did was just run the ball down their throats. As they come into Houston as 3.5-point favorites, I just don't think that's going to be the case. Houston is playing there at home. They've played some good, close games. Kicker John Hoyland, besides that one miss, has been absolutely perfect on the year. I'm taking the Gamblers +3.5. Now, before we let you go for the week, I just realized we forgot to do our weekly UFL Tonight power rankings. So starting up at number 8, going to come as a little bit of a surprise. We have not really seen this team this low in power rankings before, but number 8 has to be the Birmingham Stallions. Flat out, first ever shutout loss in UFL history. You fail to put up a single point in front of your home crowd. You're going up to your players as a head coach and just telling them to play better. And then you have players after the game tweeting out that they just can't deal with the coaching staff and you have to go cut them. It's a mess in that Birmingham locker room right now. Until they prove differently and DTR can right that ship, they're moving all the way down to number 8. Then at number 7, I know they just got their first win of the season, but it was off a team that played 3 games in 11 days. I cannot stress enough just how crazy and absurd that is. That Tuesday night game really threw a wrench in a whole bunch of things. I know they split the series with the Renegades, but the Aviators are still in that 7th spot for me. Just offensively, outside of being able to run the damn ball all day long with 47 attempts, that's not going to be sustainable, guys, because you're going to have a running back go down. You're going to have some offensive linemen be banged up. It's just not sustainable for long-term success. So the Columbus Aviators are still my number 7 team. At number 6, I have the Houston Gamblers. Now I know that they had a couple blowout losses against Dallas and then also DC, but they've been able to hold their own these past couple weeks, even with Talia Tagovailoa, their quarterback 3. So just imagine whenever they get Hunter Deckers or Nolan Henderson back, I think they're going to start clicking here pretty soon. I don't think they're going to be one of the best teams in the league, but I think they could be around that 5-6 range. And then coming in at number 5, we have the Louisville Kings. You know, they're coming off their first win in franchise history. They traded away Jason Bean in a little bit of a questionable move, but I think that Chandler Rogers and Coach Redmond can get this team back on track, and I think they have the most favorable schedule moving forward. So they're sticking at number 5 for me. And then number 4, I haven't known where to put this team all year long. I am keeping the St. Louis Battlehawks here. They got that amazing win in week 1 against DC. Sadly, couldn't complete the sweep last week, but they did do one thing, and it's acquire the King of Spring, Luis Perez. This is a team that is now going to be very, very dangerous. But until we see all of that, I'm still keeping them there right at number 4. And then number 3, I told you guys I wasn't going to be too biased on the show. I had them at number 1 all the way since preseason rankings, but we suffered a loss. Granted, 3 games in 11 days is a lot, but when you lose to a team like Columbus who hadn't won a single game, like, you just have to go down the power rankings no matter what. I'm dropping the Renegades all the way down to number 3. They won't be there long, though. They'll be back at number 1 here soon. Just wait. And then coming in at number 2, I know it's absolutely crazy. They just completely blanked the team, and they're also 4-0, but I have the Orlando Storm here. I can't really put my finger on it, but something just tells me that this team is not firing on all cylinders. They got that lucky win in overtime against the Louisville Kings, so I don't know. Their 4-0 comes with a little bit of an asterisk, if you ask me. But I've been high on this team all year. I think Anthony Becht and co. are going to stay here pretty much all year long. And I do think we see them as one of the teams in the UFL Championship. And then at number 1, I had DC at number 2. My preseason rankings, they had that week 1 loss against St. Louis. And I thought everything was just haywire. I thought that DC was no longer the animal that they once were. But these past few weeks, they've proved all of us wrong. And they're like, no, you were right the first time. We're still that guy. They play St. Louis. Now this time at home, they get the win. They get the revenge. And so, hey, you know what? I'm bumping y'all all the way up for number 1. May only last a week or two. We'll see how it goes with this Birmingham game. But right now, I just think on paper and also just on the field, DC has looked like the best, most cohesive team in the league. And of course, it's Friday night, so we have football here in just a little bit with DC going up against Birmingham. Every week, I have to give my game prediction and my score prediction. And like I just said, I had DC at number 1 in my power rankings. So I'm going with the final for this game being 29 DC, Birmingham 20. I do think, shout out Birmingham Stallions fans, if you're making it to the game, you will finally see some offense, but I don't think we'll see a Birmingham win just tonight. I think it takes DTR a little bit to get going, but you're going to definitely see a lot of stuff to build on with that offense. That's all for this week's edition of UFL Tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to tune in here in about half an hour on Fox to watch the DC Defenders take on the Birmingham Stallions right there in Birmingham, Alabama. And if you're wanting to make it out to a game, make sure you go to theufl.com/tickets to get your tickets today.
No, I'm never gang banging in my blue chucks. Money calling, so I threw the deuce up. Yeah, they plotting on me, but they gotta do